What broke you, but made you stronger? I lost my job, my house, my car. I got denied admission into clinicals for a degree I spent 4 years working on, and the love of my life cheated on me with another man. It's a horrific place to be, but eventually a very relieving one. With nothing else to use, and everything to gain, every small accomplishment feels that more significant. Hopping for the best for ya. Ribbit. In February of this year, my friend killed himself. Him and I had a friend group and we would all go out about once a month just to unwind and catch up. He always knew how to make me laugh in the ugliest way possible. On the 2nd of February, we were all together celebrating the birthday of one of our friends. Afterwards, at about 2 AM him and his roommate walked my roommate and I home, because it was late and they were worried something would happen to us. We only lived 5 minutes apart from each other and the last thing I remember saying was love you guys, see you later, take care. 24 hours later he flung himself off the 4th floor of a parking garage right across the street from my apartment. I was only a crosswalk away. It was the first time I ever lost a loved one and there were no indications that he would ever do this. He was always the life of the party. Since then, my once shy and timid personality has become more outgoing. I still struggle, but once I am friends with somebody, I make sure they appreciate it. I've reached out more to people I've lost contact with and I've just become so much more aware of how you impact others. I know my friend knew he was loved until the end and now I just make sure all my friends feel the same. I was driving my dad home from the hospital when he went into septic shock after the stent removal he had undergone had unexpected complications. I got him to the ER, helped Ridge and give information and then broke down after. I think it made things a little easier to bear when he did pass a few years later. Same thing happened to me with my granddad. Last year I was sat next to him on the sofa and witnessed him have a stroke. I was terrified and didn't know what to do. Whilst holding in my tears and panic I called an ambulance and traveled with him to the hospital. Once we arrived I just broke down and couldn't stop crying. My granddad had always been so fit, healthy and funny and it completely broke me, as it had been such a shock. He survived the stroke, but now has no mobility and lost all of his speech. He's always been a proud man and I know he'd hate to see what he's like now. Although it continues to break my heart every time I see him, I know it's going to help prepare me for the inevitable worse. Alcoholism broke me, the recovery made me stronger. The long road to recovery, I drank for almost 7 years. Stopped for almost a year, then relapsed. Was going strong on almost 5 months until a week ago. I'm not looking at it as failing though as long as I'm trying. All you can do is try bud, and good luck, you got this. I'm going through the same boat as you so I know how that feels. Being told by a, now former, friend that she was uncomfortable around me, that I was a good person and would find new friends, but to please stop hanging out with her. I was devastated. I knew I had bad social skills, but I didn't thought they were that bad. Anyway, this led to me completely separating from my friend group and being depressed as hell. Didn't eat for like 3 days. Finally tried to commit suicide. Then I went to a psychiatric hospital. In said place, I got better in social skills, much better, and I made new friends. And when I came back to school, I found myself with even more friends, because other people heard what happened. I don't know what happened to my former friend. She went to another school, and I'm scared that she might blame herself for what I did. It wasn't her fault, it was mine. Happy that you came back stronger. Keep strong, friend. I'm going through my own state of depression, and all I'm trying to focus on is myself right now. And I do have a friend I care, almost too much, which in turn put our friendship on hold. But ultimately I need to self-improve and think for myself first and foremost. But not gonna lie, it's always at the back of my head. If one day she will say the same thing to me, I'd feel devastated. Just thinking about it hurts. I had to comment, because I felt my heart stop just reading your message. Dumped by my first love. Honestly might be the worst emotional pain I've ever experienced. He was my everything. I was so used to people leaving, but that it hurt. I always became attached to people. depending on them for mental stability. Needless to say, he was my whole support. So when he left I fell. But it helped me learn to depend on myself. And it was just a snowball effect. Lots of issues started to improve after that. I actually RLY hope we can try again someday. I'm in a much better state and think the relationship could be RLY strong. Losing 99.9% of everything I owned at 40 years old. Hurricane suck. Sorry that happened. Do you mind if I ask something? I've often wondered how I would handle something like this. Do you feel driven to replace everything you had? Certain things are irreplaceable, I get that. Or do you have a different outlook on possessions and are just aiming for necessities now? Whoa. Well, I lost antiques from England and Europe, some as old as Phoenician glass. BC stuff. Wife was an artist. We had mostly originals. Some very worthy pieces. 2 pieces were on display in the Guggenheim for a year. I had a serious addiction to audio. Had 8,000 blues vinyls. 100 or so were Japanese Virgin vinyls 1-to-1 master recordings. At that time I had all available CDs printed. My equipment was my soul. Had a set of Infinity RS1s, there were 4 towers. 2 towers were 8 subwoofers each with a 500 watt amp in the each cabinet. All 4 cabinet speaker. The other 2 had 18 tweeters and 12 mid-ranges each. 14 grand at cost. Powered by 4 Dragon 1 Nachmachi 400 watt mono amps. I started collecting, there were 4 available. 100 parrots plus or minus, not really sure. Bunch of them were breeding colonies. They were outside in free flight cages. Aviaries. 1 squirrel monkey. 15 or more guinea pigs. They were all brought in on D-Day. Lost 7 cats. So not much could be replaced. I felt a huge guilt about the art. I spun out. Crashed. Would not buy a nice toothbrush. Moved into the mountains up north in as far from civilization as I could. I'm in a better place now. Have no money much. But I am very happy. More happy than I have ever been. I got back into audio. I was given a Denon surround amp. And I went nuts again. I built a home theater with 11.2 Dolby Atmos. Electric leather theater seats. Spent half of what my whole property is worth now. I am WZY out in the boonies in the northern Midwest. A few hours north of all that crazy it going on in Minneapolis. I have never truly gotten over the losses. No family pictures. No high school yearbook diplomas. The picture of my first girlfriend just an hour before she saw me lose one of my fingers. Life goes on, just with these clouds over you. I have never been able to get another cat or a bird. They were family and I lost too many in one 24-hour period. The end of my 17-year, 11.5 married relationship. Not only was it the end of a marriage, but also that of my very first relationship that began in high school. Imagine experiencing your first breakup at 35. Addiction. Recovery makes you a wiser and stronger person. That being said, there are easier ways to be strong. 3 out of 10 don't recommend. Depression. I was on the verge of suicide. Even put a loaded gun to my head. Only stopped cause parents came back early. Years of trauma, bullying, blame, shame and no one to talk to hurt me bad. But when I quickly stashed the gun to hide it from my folks, I had a moment of clarity. I saw my life in a different way, and I started improving. You can't judge life by its current season, Spencer Cariff. Last year I was also super depressed. Wasn't sure if I'd make it to graduation. But I'm now graduating. Bullying. I used to get bullied when I was younger, and while it sucked and made me isolate and avoid interactions, it made me man up and be able to not give a damn about other people's opinions. I can now easily discern between someone being toxic or someone giving genuine criticism, and I am not as easily hurt anymore. The worst was when I was only 19, having to go to the funeral home to make funeral arrangements for a loved one. Having to select a coffin from many in their coffin display room, flowers, write an obit, choose a cemetery plot and monument, etc. was overwhelming. But now, I'm better equipped to face it and know more about what to expect. Betrayal. A former best friend stole my money for his business. I was suicidal, but ended up making money to reboot my life. The surgeon that broke my jaw and then put it back together. Finding out my wife of 7 years was cheating on me. It destroyed me, but in the process I learned my self-worth and I refused to let myself get mentally, emotionally abused like that again. My fiance now is everything I lacked in prior relationships. She genuinely cares about me despite my faults and I love her immensely. Being drugged and raped by my ex-best friend's brother, then finding out he knew in advance that he was planning to get me fricked up so he could sleep with me and let it happen. Then, finding out that he got me pregnant. It destroyed me. But, the second my son was born and I saw his face, I knew I could make it something positive, and I have. My son is now about to turn 5, and he's my entire world. When it happened, I moved out of state and deleted all of my social media. Because of that, I was able to focus on becoming a stronger person not only for myself, but for my child. You're very strong and I'm sorry you had to go through that.